Hello and welcome to this afternoon's BFI Lab on pop-ups and startups with Wang and Carmen Thompson. My name is Julia Andrews Clifford and I'm delighted to welcome you to this afternoon's session. These BFI Academy Labs are online events for 16 to 25-year-olds to gain industry insight and professional advice and to support and develop your own film programming and filmmaking practices. They've been programmed by us at the Young Film Programmers Network, Southeast, and they're delivered as practical masterclasses, workshops, and networking sessions. So my name's Julia. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a white middle-aged woman wearing a yellow shirt, and I have long dark hair, and I'm in a rather cluttered room. It is really exciting to have this session, as many of our young programmers got in touch and feedback saying, we have distinctions in our dissertations, we have internships, we've done all this stuff and we still can't get our foot in the door of the exhibition industry. And so today is really about how, if you can't get your foot in the door with an organisation, how you can do it yourself. And we are really over the moon to have Wang, who did it himself, from Queer East, who is going to be interviewed by Carmen, who also did it herself, but in partnership at Aya Films. Before we get into the interview, a few little things. The first half hour will be a conversation between Carmen and Yi, sharing their respective journeys, but focusing mostly on Yi's journey and his experience of setting up Queer East as an independent festival that works with multiple cinema venues, and how he managed to get those partnerships happening and become a name in the industry by himself. The second half of the session is over to you, but you can start putting those questions out in the Q&A as soon as we start. And at about 5 o'clock, we'll start taking your questions. So please fire them away and we will do our best to do as many as possible. And in that section, there'll be questions both to Carmen and to Yi. So I also need to mention that there are captions. So if you need to access those, there's a button at the bottom, but also if you look in the chat, there'll be a way to access those. I think that's it from me. So before we start, if you didn't know about Queer East, here is a little show reel to show you a little flavour of the work they do. So if we could have the show reel, please, for last year's Queer East Festival. Thanks.
我想要送予你上水的花，情话无法度藏在心内底。你爱知影，咱的缘分是天塌了注定。把出你呀苏达，把出你呀苏古楚，马蒂玛利亚多呀西嘎巴，把出你呀苏不了，阿布茨拉茨拉，一年一年不离不弃不离掉。这古代，这里代，不能代。
Thank you for that. What a fabulous trailer. And so just, a quick nod. Yi is the director and programmer of Queer East, which is a festival aiming to showcase LGBTQ+ cinema from and about East and Southeast Asia, and to amplify the voices of Asian communities in the UK. He also works as a creative producer at the Culture Laboratory, and he has developed multiple partnerships with cinemas across the UK. Carmen is a freelance film curator, researcher and creative producer based in Scotland, and she currently works for Aya Films, which is a sales and distribution company, and she was also co-director of the 2020 edition of Africa in Motion Film Festival. She's recently become one of the staff team curators for We Are Parable, which is a Black film programming company that's done brilliantly and is also a partnership. So it seems really big, but actually there are 2 people up until recently who are behind that. And she does multiple other things that we might come to later in the session. So welcome to you both. That's enough from me. I'd like to hand over to Carmen to interview Yi. I keep combining your 2 names. I'm so sorry. Over to you, Carmen.
Thanks so much, Julia. It's so nice to be here. My name's Carmen. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a mixed race woman in my 30s. I'm wearing my hair in like a big puffy bun thing. I'm wearing a checkered dress that's going a bit crazy on the Zoom screen. And I've got sort of like a crazy bookshelf behind me. And yeah, it's just an absolute delight to be here. Thanks, Yi, for being here too. I'm aware of the time that we have, so I'm going to kick things straight off. So Yi, I just wanted to start off, I guess, as someone with quite an unconventional entry into film exhibition myself. I'm always interested in how people get to where they are. So perhaps you could talk a bit about your journey to kind of starting queries, because I know you're not necessarily from kind of a film background originally.
Hi, my name is Yi. My pronoun is he, him, and I'm having a short black hair with a white and black print shirt. And yeah, so I think, as you just say, my background wasn't related to film at all, actually. So I have been working as a creative producer for many theater and performing arts productions. I help many European and British theater companies to tour in China and Asia. And starting queries was actually the idea of showcasing queer Asian cinema has been in my mind for a couple of years since I came to London 6 years ago. As an immigrant, I just feel like I can't really see a lot of stories about my heritage, my history, and I had this idea in my mind, and in 2019, I got a chance to have a chat with there was a project called London Borough of Culture, which is a Mayor of London's cultural project about bringing arts and culture to different boroughs. So I had a chat with the team, and then they suggest me to fill this funding application. And so that was actually the start of the career. So I fill up that funding application, and I was lucky enough to get the first initial fund from them. And so yeah, so it just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I feel like that's easy to say, but I guess that shows you when you have a clear passion and you've identified a clear gap in kind of what you're seeing in a certain space, that when you go to apply for something, it seems easy, but it's because you've done the work and you know your stuff.
I think it's always it's from your personal experience as a film goer. So you want to make this film being seen, and then so that's kind of your passion about. And and then and so that's the first funding. And then I got in touch with the local film hubs. So I suggest everyone, if you are into this area, you should do that. Find your local film hubs, contact with them, and then have a chat with them, because they are always very helpful, especially if you are young programmers. So I got in touch with them, and then they have this film exhibition fund for small scale festivals. So we had the other funding and to make the first year happen. So the first edition was planned for April last year, but due to the obvious reason, we couldn't make it happen. And so we managed to put on a couple of online series, and then we brought back the hybrid film festival in autumn. But until now, we are still screening films from last year. So that's basically where we are now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I guess taking a step back and thinking about the kind of the structure of queries and things. So you're obviously the festival director. So I guess maybe you could give us a sense of like what is a festival director in terms of queries? Like what does your day look like? What do you do on a regular working day?
I mean, yeah, festival director is a fancy name, but I'm sure like for like small scale independent film festival like ours and like many other independent film festival, as a director, it means like you have to do everything.
Yeah.
Basically, like yeah, so like from I think so I can kind of like it's like a different perspective, different aspects of your job. So it can be like programming, marketing, producing, and then networking, developing. These are kind of like 5, I think, the main parts for me as well. And then it will, I think the portion will be different, depends on what stage you are in your festival. Like at the moment, we just finished our submission. So at the moment, I'm working on like programming and then producing. So I'm contacting with different venues, trying to see how we're going to make our second edition happen this year. And then I think like towards the time when the festival closes, then your job will probably more lean into the marketing side. You need to promote your festival, ticket selling, and then throughout the year, you probably need to do a lot of networking, especially like for me, as an outsider of film industry, like you really need to put like quite hard in terms of like knowing other people, get into industry. And so during a normal time, you can attend film festivals, having like a reception, a couple of drinks, and then chatting with people. But at the moment, you can't do that. So yeah, so like the networking basically online. And then also, I think you need to spend quite a lot of time, like envision your next step, your future. So like at the moment, I will always like, if I have some ideas, I will put it down, like this can be in 2023, 2024.
Yeah.
So something like that, but like it's
yeah, it's always having idea of like the big picture as well as like what's going on right now.
Yeah. So you will, so it's basically, I would say everything. Yeah, also
I thought that might be the answer, but it's always like useful to like make it obvious. Yeah, the work of a festival director. I think sometimes in other contexts, director can seem more sort of like telling people what to do and overseeing things, but very much, I guess, when you're on a small scale, it's very much like you're doing it all.
Very hands-on job, actually, like a lot of admins.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess like, yeah, again, quite a very practical question. Like what was the process like for you actually, like, establishing queries, like setting it up as a company? Like what was the logistical steps you had to take? Like was this something you'd done before? Like how did you go about finding how to do it?
Yeah, so I think the like the side, like I mean, based on my previous experience, of course I do have experience of managed projects. So like Queer East, it was original non-profit initiative under my original company. And then so that's kind of the idea. We want to do this like a small scale Queer East Film Festival. And then so the very beginning was actually just 5 screenings in one venue.
Wow.
And yeah, so that's kind of the very beginning, like the original idea. And then of course we got a lot, we managed to get quite a lot of partnerships, working with many venues. And then so it gradually developed like the scale you see now. So we had 36 films from 17 countries. And then we original plan for around like 15 days across 10 venues in London, as well as a couple of regional venues like Home, Manchester, Broadway, Nottingham. And yeah, that's kind of like, yeah, so I think, and then until last year I decided to make Career East as a community interest company on CIC, because it's kind of like also like a bit like career shift in a way, because like I was originally doing theater productions, but at the moment there's no theater production you can do.
Yeah, and was that freelance you were doing that, or?
Yeah, so I partner with another company, and then we do. So I'm mainly doing like mainly freelancing jobs. And
so you went from that to kind of establishing like kind of an actual body.
And then I think there were a lot of similarities here. Like you manage the medium and the contents are different, but like the concept of managing cultural related projects are quite similar. And I also through the experience from last year, I realized like it is something like I think we are actually doing something probably quite needed at the moment, like these kind of like racial representation, queer representation, what we need for the current industry, I think. So that's why I made like my mind like I should put more focus on Career East. Like
and then the setting it up as a CIC. Perhaps you could talk a bit about. I mean, maybe you've spoken a little bit about why you decided to do that, but what that means in terms of like funding and what funding you have access to. And maybe like just the kind of things you might want to, people might want to think about when they're doing that setting up process and making a decision about what they want to, how they want to identify.
Yeah, sure. So I think for the film festival, like if you are a young programmer, you want to initiate projects, like most of the times you will rely on public funding. This means like probably from your local film hub, from BFI, from Arts Council. And for this kind of funding, normally they will ask you to they won't award the grant to individual. That's pretty much like probably 90% of the fundings will have this requirement. So they will require you as a company or as a charity or like CIC, which is a community interest company. And the idea of CIC is kind of like in between of charity and limited company. So I think for charity, you need to have like trustees, you need to have board, and then you need to highly regulate it. And for CIC, you can make profit, but there's a certain regulation of CIC you need to fulfill. Like you don't use your profit for individual private interests, like the money need to be reinvested into your company, into your community. And so that's kind of the idea of CIC. And that's also the reason I set up like CIC company, because like in the future we probably need more funding towards our projects, and then it's always a good way like you can access funding. Otherwise you will kind of like quite a lot of opportunities of funding.
And I suppose it shows as well, if it's coming from this passion and it's coming, and it's important work to you, it's easy to justify that it's that it's contributing to community, because that's what's at the very core of what you're doing. So so I guess you said that you you got way more funding than you imagined, and you have formed all these partnerships with venues. So maybe you could talk a bit about like how approaching venues, like how did you kind of form these partnerships and make these connections with these places and get so many people on board with what you were doing?
I would actually say like it's very old school, but I actually think it's the most effective way is email. Like emailing is the key, I would really say. But also because probably in the past year you can't do anything by emailing. That's also probably the reason. But I really think like a lot of partners, I actually haven't seen them before. Like we are just on emailing. And from what I was doing is these kind of like if you attend a film festival and then you attend it as a industry delegate, or like you have like accreditation, then nobody will give you a contact details of all the delegates. And that's a very good, that's a very good start. So I kind of look into a list and to find out those cinema programmers, which I'm like, I think we should approach. And then I email them and tell them like, what is Queer East. So like, I think for an email, you need to kind of like quite clear about what you want. Because that's probably your first impression. And then that's kind of like, that will decide if they are going to reply to you or not. So like in an email, I always will put on like what Queer is about, why I'm doing this, and then what we need from them. That's actually something quite important. Like, don't feel like you are asking things, but you are actually, because you are actually asking things. And then, but you need to make it clear like what you want, and then how this partnership will benefit each other. I think that's important because cinema, they are open to having audience, they need to make their income. So you need to show them these projects will help them develop new audience, or these projects are important to the industry. And I think also one of the important things is I would really think you need to do your research. You don't just randomly email 50 cinemas without knowing what they are doing. So what I always do is I will look into their previous seasons, their previous programs, and find a similarity. Like I email, for example, I email Barbican, and then I tell them like, I know you've been doing a lot of program seasons about minority, about LGBT cinema, and then I have these projects about queer Asian cinema, and then were you interested to talk with me? And that's kind of your first approach. And I also feel like actually you won't kind of like you don't need to be afraid they don't reply to you, because that's normal. Like that's very normal. Like like normally they won't reply, like, but like you just try. And I just feel like there's no harm of doing an email, right? The worst scenario is you don't get a reply. And but like that's basically all the like the cinemas we work with are basically I reach out to them. And also the other good way is if you have existing relationship with a programmer from one cinema, you can kind of like ask, because I think they are all connect. So you can ask the cinema program from this cinema, say like, oh, I also want to put on a screening in this cinema. Do you happen to know the person there I can contact? So like always give it a ask, reach out, and then you will get the answer or you don't. But
no, I agree. And I think I always tell people, don't be afraid to follow up as well. Because I just think about now kind of having got to the point where I receive a lot of emails. I actually really appreciate a follow-up or a prompt, because often it's just completely slipped my mind and it just brings you to the top of someone's inbox, and I don't feel hassled. I just feel like, oh, thank goodness for reminding me. I just also, I completely agree. And just to reiterate again, because I so agree with what I do, I think that really making it clear why you're contacting them, and making it clear that you understand what they are as a venue. And I think especially when you're doing stuff like, I mean, the work I do is in sort of African cinema, which again is like, you may be contacting venues that have never really thought about this type of content before. So you really need to like lay out why you think it's important for them to do it, because they may not have even thought about programming this kind of work before. So I think it's
I really feel like like the other example is actually why I'm here is because I actually, after the previous session of the industry program, and I found this session are very helpful. So I emailed Julia, say like, I really enjoy the session, and then we jump on a call for a chat, and then today I'm here. So kind of like the power of email.
I'm just gonna just to add on that, I think I wonder, I know that you've done some marketing before and you still do some freelance marketing. I wonder if maybe like that background and thinking about that approach like is kind of informs some of the stuff that you do, and like thinking about how to engage like partnerships and things. And I also, maybe you could just talk about that. Maybe you could talk about like how you approach marketing for queer East in general, I guess, and communication?
Yeah, I think for the cinema, for the film festival of our kind, we are actually, the main idea is actually showing a kind of culture to audience. So I would really think like audience are the key for us. And we are not like those festival will give awards like best editing or something. We are mainly like very topic focused film festival. So like what I approach the program is I will think why audience want to see this film. It's kind of like the always the question I will ask, like why what things audience can get from this film. So this is kind of like, I think it's very important, especially if you are doing this kind of like cultural, social, political related film programming. You need to have a story behind your program, and then audience can resonate from that. Otherwise, it will sometimes you will feel quite difficult. It's like you put on a program, but like audience probably don't really know your curatorial story. They don't quite get it, and then that's kind of like that's kind of like the thing I will always ask myself, and then I will make sure we have a diverse program, touch every different topics, like from like elder LGBT community, trans community, so like all these things, and like enough women's stories. Like I will try focus on these because these are all kind of like make your program approachable by audience. And and then from the marketing side, like we actually use social media quite a lot. That's kind of like our main platform. And but I don't just like the social media for us is not just talking about our events or films. Like I put on a lot of like story, other festivals events, and then like news about the creation community, because this is the topic we want to showcase to people. So and then this is a way to engage your audience actually, so they kind of like stick with your platform, and then they will know your future events.
I think the digital space is like really opened up kind of film exhibition and made it so much more accessible to people, because you can like tap into like you say, to all these other conversations and find audiences that are really interested in what it is you're trying to show in a way that you know, if when you back in the day you wouldn't have been able to. You're kind of relying on like posters or things, you have to put them places, you can just go and find them there. But just
I also quite important is like you actually don't need like we do have like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, but like I would suggest a lot of beginners. I'm also a beginner, but like I would share my experience is like if you can manage all these three, choose the one you think most effective, because like you actually don't need three in a way. Like recently I found from the audience surveys we gave out, I found out like actually quite a high percentage of our audience are from Twitter. So that means probably we can reduce our time on Facebook a little bit more, and then we put our focus on Twitter. So like it's always to think the most effective way to engage your audience.
And again, if you think about your audience first, if you think about, you know, who are the audience you're trying to get to, and which platform are they most likely to be using? And then I'm aware that we're already running out of time. We're going to skip to the last like few questions. But is there any particular like tips or like kind of stuff you wish someone had told you when you were setting up your company, or, you know, or just generally setting up a company or a festival or a pop-up? Like what are kind of your
any tip? I would say like you can dream big but start small. So you start like the things you can manage, like what I just mentioned, like we start with 5 screenings in one cinema, and then it kind of like naturally, organically grow to this big. But like the original idea is actually very small, but you need to well prepared for your future, not your future plan, but like you need to know your next step. So for example, if a founder are willing to give you 20K, you need to tell the founder, what are you going to do with these 20K, right? But you probably won't be able to get that in the first place. So that's kind of like the suggestion I would get. And then I will always think, if you are really into this, if you are really want to go into the industry, try to get in touch with the festival you usually go, the cinema you usually go, because I feel like actually like a lot of community focused film festival, they are very open-minded and they always want to have more people, bring more people into their team. So like, for example, I know my friends, she had this program and she got in touch with a film festival she likes, say like, I have this program and I really hope I can be part of the festival this year. And then that's kind of like where she starts. So I will always say like, find your local cinema and then your local film festival, and try get in touch with film hubs, your local film hubs, because like there are a lot of free resources online about how you can set up your film festival and then your community cinema. Like I learned a lot from, for example, the ICO's website. There's a great resource about like even tell you what license you need. That's actually like, for everyone doing film festival will know, like licensing is actually a pain, like it's crazy. And then so like I would say like there are a lot of free resources online, and then use them. And like I know Google is an evil tech giant, but like using Google, like you can search a lot of things from it.
No, I agree. And I just prompt everyone again to throw in questions for I'm just gonna ask one more question that's sort of on that, and also sort of on something I meant to ask you earlier as part of this last section. I wondered if you maybe identify like specific people that were really important to your journey. I know that you kind of do everything in the festival, but do you kind of have a team around you now? Like, who are the people that have been there to help you in that journey, and who's kind of around you now in Query?
Sorry, I didn't mean like I do this.
No,
but
I know there are.
Like, so while I'm working, the way I work is I work with a group of freelancers, and then that's where I identify what I need. For example, I can't do design by myself, and I have a friend who's a brilliant graphic designer. I asked him to do a design for us last year. And then for example, I need someone to go through our program and then check out everything. Like I had these people, and then I can't do PR, so I had like a PR specialist who help us do those price release. So it's kind of like task based. And then so that's kind of like the way I group up this team. And so you as the like leader of the project, you need to identify what tasks you can assign to people and you can achieve. So that's kind of quite important. Otherwise, you will be just, all the jobs will just lie on you, and then you will and also I think and the thing is like I know sometimes it's difficult, but I will always encourage, if you can pay the people who work for you, you should pay. Like for us, we got funding, so we supposed to pay the people who work for us, and it won't be a lot, but at least you show the gesture. And then I would so like, if you can, please do that. But if you cannot, then be honest. And then I think people are always very helpful, and then if it's a project they are passionate about, they will always want to help.
And I agree. And I think it's also something like, it goes back to what you were saying about starting small, because I think that even if you get a budget that seems big, I think your best place, making sure that people are paid and doing, like, having the activities being slightly smaller and tighter than trying to do loads and everyone's working for free. So I'm an advocate. I don't things like unpaid internships and things like that, I think that what people's time is important, so where you can, but obviously when you're starting out, it's not as easy. Cool. Well, maybe we'll like wrap up there with this section, but it's been awesome. We thought we'd chat for ages. But yeah, Julia.
Thank you both so much. And so, yeah, just to reiterate, we've got a couple of questions, but more would be good. So throw them in. And I'm going to start with my question. I'm going to get in there first, since I am going to take that privilege.
Yeah.
So what was fascinating to me about both of your journeys is that you didn't have a grand vision, but they evolved. And that sort of, yeah, the dreaming big, but the starting small bit and knowing what the next step is. So my question is, at what point did you feel like you were an entrepreneur, if you did? And what skills do you think, as an entrepreneur rather than a film programmer, you might need if you're going to start something yourself? So maybe start with Carmen. And
oh, I knew you were going to say that.
And also, and maybe Carmen, give a little bit about, because obviously the focus of the first half has been on you, but maybe tell us a little bit about how your journey into film exhibition and having a partnership and Aya Films. So that would give us the context to how similar it is to Yi's.
Sure, yeah. I will try and summarize it. Yeah, unlike Yi, I wasn't even anywhere near the arts really. So I did like physics at university, but film for me has always been sort of like something that I've loved, but it just seemed like this sort of ethereal, like otherworldly thing that you couldn't actually like work in. It wasn't anything I ever thought about that would be kind of realistic for me. But I suppose, again, similar to you, I grew up in Kenya. So I came to the UK, and when I came to the UK, there was such a stark difference between how the kind of experience I'd had of living in an African country and like traveling around Africa, and the way that the continent was like represented in media and in film and things. So mine, yeah, there was like resonances. It's very similar. It was very much about like, you know, I need people to see like, you know, the Kenya or the countries that I know and the films that I know and love and that resonate with me that aren't being shown. So I started as a runner in a production company. I started working in marketing, and I took like a shift to a television channel where I was doing some marketing, but also some on-air programming. And then I started through that. I got to start going to festivals because we'd partner with them on events. And I realized that this amazing space of film festivals and like the exciting stuff that happens there, the conversations, the kind of all this kind of everything coming together in one space. And I thought, oh gosh, this is like, these are the spaces for me. But yeah, it was very much, like you say, it was very much about like, because it was so far away from anything I'd done before, it was very much about micro steps and like, what can I do within the space that I'm in at the moment? So I did lots of like film clubs, just screening for my friends. I did a master's and was, you know, tried to do screenings when I was at university, and building until, yeah, I moved to Scotland. I'm sort of doing a PhD as well. I started working with Africa in Motion, and through that found Justine, who it's very much her company, but we work together on Aya Films, on film releases, and also we're like developing this app together as well. So I don't know if there was ever a point where I defined myself as an entrepreneur. But I think the skills that I've definitely developed and that I feel like have been important to me, yeah, have been a confidence, again, like what you were saying, where I'd always be kind of tentative about like, oh, you know, people won't want to be emailed, or like I can't email them, they're too important or high up. Just kind of taking chances on people and just relying on the fact that, you know, you're really passionate about something. You think this thing is like really exciting and cool. And if you do, other people probably do as well. And if, you know, lots of people do, then you can convince the world, you can convince these like so-called and, you know, important people that it's important as well. So I think it's just holding on to that passion and drive that gets you through a lot of things. I think just holding on to what's important to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, persistence. I mean, that's, I think, is like a massive thing. And it's interesting when you were saying about not worrying about follow up. And apparently they say in art galleries that if you don't apply about 4 times, they don't take you seriously. So you can obviously feel embarrassed that somehow, oh, it's so bad that they haven't got in touch with me as an artist. But actually, it's a kind of, you've got to prove that you mean it. So I think that's an interesting sort of side of it. Yi, what you know, from your point of view, do you feel like you're an entrepreneur now, or are you still primarily a film programmer?
No, I wouldn't really say that, because I also feel like we are not really making money at the moment. So
Okay.
in terms of like business side, we are still like a bit large of it. But I mean, yes, like it's more like I would really say like you need to have the like brave to try things. That's kind of like very important, like what Carmen said, like I think we share the kind of the same approach. Is like we don't afraid of approaching people. Actually like I'm actually a very shy and anti-network socializing person, but like because I'm doing this job, I have to approach other people, and then that's kind of like the way I get started. And then the other thing is I think you need to know how to make a plan, because that's also something when they want to work with you, they want to hear like what's the program you are going to do. You need to have the vision, and then what's the marketing side are you going to do, and you need to know how to persuade them in a way. So this is kind of like the skill I think you will need. And but also like if you are a field programmer, this is something I think you will have it, because like you are doing a film program, and you need to know your audience. That's why you do this program, right? So this is something you need to combine them, and then it will help you to like grow your program, I think. Yeah.
Brilliant. I mean, and on that note then, so we're going to go to the first question, which is from Matt. To be eligible for CIC funding, can the festival vision have to be related to current social or political issues, or can it be related to repertory film programming? So that's to both of you, your opinion on that.
Yeah, I will speak from my opinion. Apparently, I'm not company house, so I don't want to give any official. Yeah. I think for the fund, it will depend on what funding are you going to apply, and the like the CIC means like you are a registered company, which is kind of like the criteria for a lot of funding. But in terms of the contents, I don't think they will kind of like you need to fulfill the funding needs, like what kind of funding you are asking for. And if it's Film Hub's funding, then there's no like there's no regulation about like you can only screen new films, or you can only screen retrospectives. Like there's no such regulation. It's more about what the whole package of your program, how you persuade the funders with your program. So if you find screen these old films are needed for your program, then you need to find a reason to tell them why you need to screen these films. And that's the way you get the funding. So yeah, in terms of what type of company you are, I don't think it will affect the funding you are going to apply.
Yeah, and so yeah.
I was just going to add, I think that's true. I just think it's thinking about, like, obviously it doesn't necessarily have to be related to social and political issues, but like I think then you need to think about why it is that what you're doing is, you know, is of interest to the community, because that, you know, that's what's at the core of CIC. So like, you know, if you're programming, why is it important within the community that you're you know, why should it be of interest to people? And that doesn't necessarily need to be because it's socially or politically like relevant at the time. There's lots of different reasons why it can be important, but again, it's like going back to like why you find it important, what your passion is, and like what your audience want. And it's just the way that you kind of frame that and justify that when you're kind of applying to be a CIC or applying for funding.
I mean, I think we were talking earlier, and that sense of having a vision seems crucial, but that whatever that vision is, it's not what the tail wagging the dog. You know, you can look at all of the funding bids and think, oh, okay, this is what they want. Boom, 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 boom. Tick box, tick box, tick box. And you can create funding bids like that. But it might show that it's like that, And also you might run out of persistence with that, because if you, as you said, it's not a big millionaires kind of entrepreneurial Richard Branson style of startup. It might be that passion for your vision is actually the capital that you're making from having your own company, you know. So thank you. Yeah, okay. Matt also asked, I'm going to follow on because it relates earlier to what was talked about in terms of the licenses and things like that. So, you know, getting to the kind of nitty gritty, the funding, the licenses. I'm looking to start my own virtual theatrical hybrid film festival. Can you talk a bit about securing rights for virtual screenings? Does it differ at all from securing rights for theatrical exhibition? And obviously that's a very current topic today. Yi, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I mean, from my side, because the majority of the film we screen, they are not UK distributed, so they don't have UK distributor here, and then we need to negotiate the right from the original distributors back in Asia. And I think in terms of virtual and theoretical, I think they are the same thing. And then, but the distributor may charge you differently. Like for theoretical screening, it will usually depends on, I'm talking about the foreign distributor side, because like I know UK distributor work in different way. But like for the foreign distributor side, they will usually they will say like, oh, one screening is £300. So you pay that flat rate. So it's like 300 for screening film once. But in terms of virtual, it will depend on what kind of virtual you are doing. Because I know some distributor, they will charge by views. So you purchase views, like you say, like I want 1,000 views, and then you set that cap, and then they will tell you like 1,000 views is how much. Or you purchase by days, like 1 week screening, and or like I know some film festivals, they do like 48-hour screening. So the virtual side will be more flexible, depends on different distributors. But if you are screening a foreign films in a normal cinema, I would usually say the rights is actually usually lying on 300 to 500. Sometimes they will charge you crazy amounts, but I think this is quite a fair amount. And then I know like UK distributor, they usually will give you a minimum guarantee, like 100 or something, and then or like 35%, 30% box office share. So UK distributors are quite straightforward in a way. But I think what's the difference is like I know there's a community screening rights. So which is like if you are not screening your film in normal cinema, then if you are screening in community space, you usually will get like discounted rate. And that will depend on different distributors. And I'm sure a lot of film festival or young program are actually doing this. So like you don't screen the films in normal cinema, you screening in community center or like in school or something like that. So it's always worth to check out, let them know your situation, and then I think usually you can kind of like negotiate this a little bit.
The one thing I'd say about online as well that is a kind of a bit of a spanner in the works, I guess, is the presence of online platforms like Netflix and Amazon and things. The problems we've had recently with festivals that I've worked with, the screening on with getting online rights, is that they've been bought by these platforms who have bought, you know, the sole online rights for films, and you wouldn't even know they were there, because often these platforms don't, like, especially if it's like, you know, African cinema or any kind of non-mainstream Hollywood cinema, it does, you know, it gets lost in their kind of bank of films, but it's there and they have the rights, so you can't show it anywhere else in a way that you would have been able to, you know, you can do if it's physically in a venue. So that's something to be aware. Sometimes there can be some disappointment if you're like searching in Netflix and you find that film that you want to show. It's very unlikely that you'll be able to screen it online. Unfortunately.
Yeah. And you know, Carmen mentioned about the app that IF Films have developed called Curate It, and maybe we just have the slide for that, and maybe tell us a little bit more about that, because that app will go into exactly these kinds of questions. That, yeah. So maybe just tell us a little bit about the Curator app.
Yeah, so it's a project where it's funded by Screen Scotland. We got a big fund from Screen Scotland last year, and basically it's an online app, a mobile and desktop app that's like a kind of 8-step course that gives you like an overview of all these different elements, I guess, that we've kind of touched on, that go into like curating a film festival, from like actually watching the films to like kind of a bit of film theory about how you look and approach films, and then the kind of different ways in which you can curate them, to like how you put together a wish list, how you find sales agents, distributors, and then how you negotiate, and then things like the practicalities, putting together a budget, monitoring and evaluation, risk assessments, and everything like that. And then the final step of it is a kind of a VOD platform that we've developed as well. So the idea is if you go through the app, you can then at the end put on your own online screening and upload your film and host it on the, it's called Screen It platform. So yeah, we're really excited about it. We've got the first step of it is we've got four or five participants that are based in Scotland that are going to go through the app, which we anticipate takes about 3 months of like working two days a week. So they're going to do the course with us, being mentored by us. They're going to put on some screenings in September, and then it's going to go live to the public. So we're very much about like trying to democratize like curatorial learning and kind of get, increase accessibility to this kind of information, which, like I was saying earlier, like sometimes just seems like so, it's you sometimes you just don't have access to it if you don't know the right people. And I think that makes the curation and film exhibition space like a less interesting space. So like the more people that have access to it, the more exciting stuff hopefully will end up being programmed in the future. So hopefully we're going to try and help be part of that.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love, that democratizing, and it's totally, the Young Film Programmes Network Southeast is all about that. But to have that app that really kind of is your friend, your friendly neighborhood experienced programmer, to give you all of those answers is just wonderful. And we'll probably be asking Carmen to come back and talk about that, and we'll be promoting that come September, because it looks amazing.
And I can actually show you more of it, because obviously it's not launched yet. So
yeah, exactly. And also we have our online course through the ICO website that people can go on to, and it goes through some of the steps about licensing and archaeology of films and so on. So I
was going to say, like, the ICO website, when I discovered it, is like such an incredible resource. There's so much there, so many, just the articles and things that people write about. Yeah, it's just amazing. So I would reiterate what you said about
so all of those contacts, so all the information is there, but the basic kind of passion and persistence has to go behind it to get through all of that, that reading. We're going to go back. There's a question from Christopher Brown. He's asked it for you, but I think to both would be useful. So obviously in this online climate we are now, you've run several online events and screenings this year. Have these offered any opportunities for the festival that in-person events don't? So obviously we've often talked about it the other way around, but is there what's the advantage of online that in-person can't do? And is there anything you can use in the future or learn going forward? So maybe maybe you answer that first, since it's directed to you, and if you can add anything, Carmen, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think for us, the online also actually did help us reach a national audience. That's the most incredible thing of this online screening, I think, because from the results I see, we have like audience from Newcastle, from Oxford, Cambridge, and then also a lot of like small cities, which we probably won't be able to put on an actual in-person screenings there, because like we don't have large scales at the moment. And yeah, that's kind of the thing. And also I think the online I think it will depend on different festival, but like we do is we put on the film for usually it's 1 week. So like there's no this time limit. You need to be to the cinema at this time. And this kind of flexibility is something online I think is offer to a lot of audience. They can watch the films whenever they want, and they can pause it if they want. And yeah, but that's kind of the good side of online. And but I also feel like, sorry, I need to go back to this. I also feel from the recent audience survey I found, because we are recently doing some in-person screenings, and I found very interesting is a lot of in-person audience, they haven't attended any of online screenings before. So I still feel there's quite a distinction here. Like, I feel like some people, they probably don't wanna doing these online screenings, so they prefer to go to in-person screenings. And if you can, I think it's always good to have a try to see like what works for you. And the downside for online screenings or online festival is like there are so many things happening online. And as a new film festival, you will easily get buried under these like massive offerings online. So that's something you probably need to be aware. But yeah, but in terms of online results, I'm actually very happy because like it also help our social media, our brand awareness growing quite fast throughout the past year for like because of our online screenings. Yeah.
Right. I mean, obviously the accessibility.
I was just gonna say that like I think online has really like brought to the forefront accessibility in a way that in-person events have been seriously behind on for a long time. Some of the feedback we had for African Motion, which was online for the first time, and it's usually in person, was like not only like just physical accessibility. I think we assume that everybody has access to a cinema, that it's close to a cinema, that can get to a cinema. So we had people saying, thank you so much. Like I've been able to come for the first time because I can watch it online. I can't usually get to a cinema, or I have childcare, or I have all these things. And I think also just in terms of accessibility in terms of things like captioning, subtitles, BSL, and I think online there's an expectation there that again just hasn't been there. It has been there from certain audiences, but not like, you know, I think venues have been very behind in terms of what they offer for audiences in terms of in that kind of accessibility. So I think it's really going to be interesting to see how we transition to venues and kind of that, you know, they're going to have to step up in terms of what they're offering audiences and offering more accessible screenings, because it's been really exciting, I think, in that way. But.
Yeah, fantastic. We've run out of time.
I know.
But no, so in the last minute, if there's anything that either of you thought it's like a top tip or anything that we haven't covered that you feel like you should communicate, now is the moment. It's a bit wide open there, but no. Well, we have run out of time. But thank you so much for both of your time and passion and energy to share how you've, you know, we didn't go into massive detail about the minutiae of setting up your company and going through Companies House, etc., etc. But as freelancers and your own company startups, thank you so much for giving your time. It's really inspirational to see how you've done so well in such a short space of time. And I hope that the people watching who are thinking of doing the same realize that actually this moment in history does seem to be quite good for pop-ups and startups in film exhibitions. So we will send out a survey and there'll be some bits of jargon info about CICs and charities, etc., etc. But obviously, if you want more information, just email. And to say next month, we will be having our webinar on an exhibition, a production focus. And before you go tonight, if you fancy a bit more online, I know it's sunny here anyway, but don't forget to check out Yi's recommendations that were on the newsletter, because they're all amazing choices, and quite a couple of them are free as well. So there you go. Nothing for the filmmakers there, but all good for the audience. It's a buyer's market or something. Anyway, thanks so much for coming, and thanks so much for Tara for captioning for us, and we'll hopefully see you next month. Cheers. Bye.